Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 222. Oh, I did it again. Recorded on, what is today? October the 10th?
10th.
2012.
Hey, guess what today is? 10/10/12.
That doesn't mean anything.
So,
tomorrow will be more interesting.
Squadron 6, or Squadron 42, you're allowed to put money towards it.
I don't know what that is.
Tomorrow will be the last quarter of that Sesame Street song.
10, 11, 12.
11, 12.
Yeah, all right.
Anyway.
Anyway, I hope this is not your first episode, but I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Alan Malventano.
We are in a fantastic mood today. We have a fantastic week of hardware news to discuss with you, starting with how you can win 16 gigabytes of memory. Completely free. How about 16 gigs of Corsair Dominator Platinum memory that's so cool that it comes in a clamshell box.
And you can use it after you take the memory out to put your hot plates on.
Or you can wear it as a hat. Anyway, so this is, I think it's, what is it, 2133? Yep, 2133 megahertz memory, 16 gig kit, 4 gig DIMMs, obviously. This is the new Dominator Platinum. It has the LED bar underneath the heat spreaders. If we scroll down here, you can see there's this. See the fancy picture that Ken took with our camera. You see the LEDs. Eventually, before the end of the year, they're telling us that you'll be able to replace those with different colors, red, green, blue, all that kind of stuff of LEDs. So we're going to try to get some of those early. But you can win a set of this 100% for free. All you have to do is go to PCPer.com, look for the post. I believe it's still on the homepage. It looks like this. It says, win 16 gigs of Corsair Dominator Platinum DDR3 2133 megahertz memory. Pretty descriptive, I thought. And all you really have to do is leave a comment, although we instruct you to also go to Corsair's Facebook page and like it, and our Facebook page and like it, because they give away a lot more stuff on their page through other websites as well that don't exist. And we often give away other stuff besides Corsair things on our Facebook page, so you should be signed up to get our notifications on there either way. So we're going to do a little bit of video on these. You know, memory reviews are hard to do in any kind of entertaining, useful way. But, you know, we can show you. We can take it apart. You know, maybe get Ken to wear a halter top. Speak in a slightly British accent. Anybody?
Only if he does it for 3 minutes.
Okay, we can do that. So yeah, check out that contest. Let's move on to some content. We had several reviews go up this week. First off is a motherboard review, the Asus P8 Z77V Deluxe. This is a Z77 motherboard from Asus, as you might have guessed. Steve wrote this review for us. You can check out the full review there. I won't bother kind of walking through a bunch of stuff here. Lots of USB 3, the Wi-Fi's, HDMI, DisplayPort. You can see giant list of specifications here, and he did come away liking the board in terms of what kind of feature set it offered, the overclocking capability, the UEFI, the included software, all that kind of stuff. So if you are still trying to decide on a Z77 board for an Ivy Bridge or Sandy Bridge processor, make sure you go take a look at that. Their software has really been impressive recently. You can see here the EPU software, kind of the power stuff, the diagnostics, fan monitors, voltage monitors, all that kind of deal, all included with this board. And it did get a fancy gold award.
Gold.
So check that out. Also, something else, we don't have Scott on today. Usually he kind of wants to come on and talk about these editorials. He is MIA this evening. He wrote an editorial about the Gamepad actually being designed for gaming or not. Did anybody, Jeremy, do you want to talk about this at all? Anybody have a brief description or overview?
Well, I mean, I've always had a deep hatred in my heart for gamepads. I don't know if they're shaped wrong or my hands are shaped wrong, but whatever, after 30 seconds or 45 seconds, I'm already uncomfortable, and it just gets worse and worse. But essentially sort of what he's talking about is that gamepads are using analog joysticks. So it's got sort of a velocity-oriented scheme, which is, either on or off, and depending on how accurate you want to be, you can't really be accurate with an analog stick. I mean, it's either on or off. With a mouse, it's positional based. So you can essentially put your cursor wherever you want. He does mention that he's got some certain gaming habits. He brags a little bit about his American Army score, where he suggests, maybe putting the fire button on a different on the keyboard as well as on the mouse, so that you don't jiggle the mouse as you're firing. But as far as he's concerned, the gamepad is good for casual gaming. It's not as accurate as a mouse and a keyboard, but at the same time, it's a hell of a lot easier to use if you're just sitting in front of a TV with a bunch of friends.
Right.
So, I mean, there are some games on the PC which you can say, yeah, I can get a USB gamepad. And I mean, hey, if you grew up with that and that's the way you like it, do it. But guess what? My mouse and keyboard's going to win.
Shouldn't we all just get phantom lap boards anyway?
Well, oh no, I want the mental interface.
Oh, yeah, that's right. OCZ released that a long time ago, didn't they? The Synapse.
U or whatever. Neural interface.
Yeah,
something.
just look at their stock. You can tell how good that did.
Sad face. You know what? I think
Jess isn't going to talk to you
their
anymore.
stock took a hit for that many years ago.
Yeah.
I still have one. It's sitting on. Maybe I'll try to remember to bring it in and do a video on it and see how the driver support has been.
Improved
fared over
upon?
the years. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about a review that I published this week, the GeForce GTX 650 Ti. This is I think probably the last Kepler graphics card. It kind of completes the lineup of NVIDIA's cards from the super high end at the GTX 690 to the GT 640. I don't know. They might have released a GT 630 and that kind of stuff. I don't know if that's actually a Kepler card, though. But regardless, from the stuff that you actually care about, starts at like the GTX 650 and goes up. So the 650 Ti is actually based on the same GPU as the 660 vanilla, the GTX 660 vanilla. You can see here in this kind of diagram that I mocked up, there's actually two of them. So the GTX 660 is 5 SMX units, and the GTX 650 Ti is 4 of them. Now, you'll notice that there are two diagrams here. It's because depending on how that particular die, that particular chip comes off the line, it's possible they may have 2 full complete GPCs that are functioning, or they have 1 complete GPC and 2 that have just 1 working. So this gives them a little bit more flexibility in terms of you being able to use the most actual die off the wafer. It has 768 CUDA cores. It's a drop of 20%. You go from 5 to 4 of these XMS units. Now, some of the other important specifications include a drop from 192 to a 128-bit memory bus and corresponding 16 ROP units instead of 24. You also get half or 2/3 of the L2 cache as well. Also, the frame buffer is 1 gig instead of 2 gigs, and that will make that'll make a difference in terms of high resolution or high texture resolutions at 1080p gaming scenarios, and you'll see some of that. Because of the decrease in memory bus width and a lowering of memory speed, it's not running at 6 gigahertz anymore, it's running at 5.5 gigahertz. We see this is the first time we've seen one of these GPUs drop below 100 gigabytes per second. Memory bandwidth is actually 86.4. Still 28 nanometer chip. It's still, like I said, it's the same die as GTX 660, so it's 2.5 billion transistors, although the TDP does drop to 110 watts, which is nice. Other big changes, no GPU boost and no SLI. So even though there's here, SLI has been removed from the GTX 650 Ti, and GPU boost, one of the main kind of architectural changes to Kepler, the idea of dynamically changing voltages, dynamically changing clocks based on gameplay and all that kind of stuff, is removed from the GTX 660. So with the reference clock speed of 925 megahertz, that's you're going back to before boost technologies in terms of how it works. Base clock, all the cores run at 925 megahertz. Memory runs at 5.4 gigahertz instead of 6 gigahertz. So there are some some pretty noticeable changes with this. We get the lineup now. You can go 650, 650 Ti, 660, 660 Ti, 670, 680, 690. So they've pretty much completed the thing. Here's the pictures of the reference card. It is short and small and stubby, just like Josh.
Yep.
It's nice to see, like, this cooler. It looks like almost like a single slot cooler, but it's actually 2 slots. You can see in this photo, even though it's got 1 slot bracket, it actually will take up 2. I'm hoping to see some single slot cards from different AICs in the not too distant future. They also have 2 DVI, 1 HDMI port. One does still require 1 6-pin power, although it's fairly close to not requiring it, I think. And this is an interesting picture. This is one of the benefits of the 650 Ti compared to the competition. On the left, you will see a HD 7850 1 gigabyte. On the right, you will see a 7770 1 gigabyte, and in the middle, the 650 Ti 1 gigabyte. So, looking at one of the advantages you'll see with this card is that it will be able to fit in smaller spaces. It will be a little bit quieter. It will be a little bit cooler. We also did get an EVGA retail card in that we're still running through our testing. It is also short and stubby, but it does have, it's using the 2 slots that it's going to use anyway, at least, which is, in my opinion, makes a lot more sense there. So you can see just a little bit of a difference.
Fully shrouded for her pleasure.
Fully shrouded. So our benchmarks compared the 650 Ti, that 7850 1 gig, and the 7770 1 gig. And then we also threw in the GTX 560. Now that's a Fermi-based card, but it's priced very similarly. The GTX 650 Ti is going to be $149. And the GTX 560 currently sells for about $169. So within $20 of that. When we compare it to the AMD side, what's interesting is the 650 Ti fits perfectly in between the 7770 and the 7850. You'll see 119 and 179 for those cards respectively. So $30 cheaper for the 7770, $30 more expensive for the 7850. Now, if we just go ahead to our first benchmark, we'll go look at Battlefield 3. It's kind of, the lead out of the story, just because this is the one people are most interested in. Keep in mind that we ran this at 1080p and 1680 by 1050, but at ultra settings. That's not the ideal image quality settings, but this allows us to test against all of our previous results. And what you'll see here is right away that it does fit between the 7770 and the 7850, but it's considerably behind the GTX 560. If we look at the 1080p results, you'll see something interesting. Notice that this graph here, the purple lines and the green lines, those drops are the 7770 and the 7850, and those are really dramatic slowdowns in frame rates that are basically a result of using the Ultra preset, the driver in the game not really communicating well enough to know that, hey, we can't do any more texture resolution than where you're at. We're overflowing our buffer. Essentially like when you run out of memory on your computer and it starts using your hard drive for caching and that kind of stuff. Same type of thing.
Page file.
Yeah, so that's obviously not good. The general consensus in our performance testing was that the 650 Ti performed between the 7770 and the 7850, but it was closer to the 7770 than it was the 7850. For example, if you look at Batman Arkham City, you can see here, this is one of the few games where the 650 Ti and the 560 kind of ran neck and neck, but it's a little bit closer to the performance of the 7770 than it is the 7850 1 gigabyte card. And I think you'll see, if I remember correctly, the same is true in Metro as well. Actually, yeah, it's noticeably closer to look at the 650 Ti here versus the 7770 versus the 7850. So you can see 7850 definitely offers more performance than the 650 Ti. Keep that in mind when we look at the pricing, all that kind of stuff. Where Kepler has an advantage, and again, it's odd to talk like this because the tables have turned so drastically. Look at the power consumption. The GTX 650 Ti actually uses identical amounts of power than the Radeon 7770, which it outperforms pretty steadily. But if you compare it to the GTX 560 from Fermi, we're talking 90 watts difference in power consumption. That's huge. That's like a whole nother GTX 650 Ti, really, in terms of power difference.
Which you can't run.
But you can't run because you can't do SLI. And then the 7850, you're still using 40 watts less than the 7850, which not that it's really impressive, and it may be a big deal for some people, but I've always had this argument, and I had this argument. They had this opinion when NVIDIA's Fermi architecture was what they had. They did before Kepler's release. It was like, yes, NVIDIA uses more power at the time. They used more power and they ran hotter. But at the end of the day, people who are buying a card for games care much less about that than they do gaming performance. And I'm of the opinion that people use lower power consumption, lower noise, lower heat as a kind of confirmation of their better choice in the matter, as opposed to making it a really huge part of their purchasing decision. And in this case, the roles are reversed now. Now AMD is using a little bit more power, but they're also a little bit better performer for the dollar in this market. And I think that's kind of telling. And the last thing I'll just show you here, guys, if we go to look at the conclusion page, is that there's nothing really here. Oh yeah, there is. 650 Ti will ship with a free copy of Assassin's Creed 3, which is I don't know how big of a seller that was on the PC. I was a big fan of Assassin's Creed games on the console. I only played 1 and 2, so to me this is a AAA level game. $50, maybe $60, and you're getting it for free with a $150 video card. Makes a pretty significant difference in your purchasing decision. If you were going to buy Assassin's Creed 3 anyway, then maybe this will affect you. But if we look at it, and
AMD is throwing in sleeping dogs, so you could almost make the decision based on which game you wanted for free.
Right. Only with the 7850, not the 7770 for sleeping dogs.
Yeah, the 7850.
But I think those are interesting launch kind of promotions. I don't like to consider them in the long term, because eventually that deal will be over and these cards will still be on sale, and they need to be able to stand on their own merit. They need to be able to stand to people who aren't interested in Assassin's Creed 3 or Sleeping Dogs or whatever, that just want to make a good graphics card purchase. So, I love the 680, I love the 670, I really love the 660 Ti. The 660 and the 650 Ti have been less impressive. I don't want to say I don't like them. They're great cards. They're solid cards, but I don't think they were priced.
Solid.
I don't think they were priced competitively enough to be the outstanding win that the earlier Kepler cards were. So, I encourage you guys to go read the full review. It gives you a lot more insight into which games are doing what, and how the dollar amounts kind of play into it. If the 650 Ti were for sale, what do I say in my conclusion? The 650 Ti from NVIDIA struggles to find a comfortable place in our performance and pricing schemes at $149 between the 7770 and 7850. I think if this were $130, if this were $20 less, in this price range, that makes a huge difference. And for looking at $130 versus $180 for the 7850, you start to see it's pretty close, and I get to save $50, which then I can then buy that copy of Sleeping Dogs with, or whatever you wanted it to be, Dishonored or XCOM or whatever it was. So if prices drop, that could make a difference. We have some overclock cards. I've got a Zotac and EVGA. They're both overclocked. We're going to do a review with those and see if that makes a big difference, because you can get the overclock cards for like $10 more, not very much. And we'll see how big of a difference that makes. I think this will be another instance where memory speed can maybe make a big difference in overall performance picture too. Anybody have any other kind of thoughts or ideas on the 650 Ti?
Yeah, it was way too expensive for what you got in terms of performance. Sure, it didn't have a whole lot of power consumption, but if you get one of those little 5-watt or 10-watt Christmas bulbs and plug that in at the same time you're gaming, using that
what do you
much
guys
power.
What do you guys think about that mentality of, would you pay more for a card that uses less power and is quieter and that kind of stuff, a little bit cooler?
Depends on the application.
Right. Well, let's
Really?
assume it's for gaming, right? Because even though the 650 Ti is a low-end gaming card, it's still a gaming card. You don't buy a 650 Ti to do graphics, like
True.
imaging.
But is it But is it a gaming system that's sitting like right next to your desk and you want it to be quiet and it's a quiet room and et cetera, that kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, because they're all pretty decently performing cards, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just some people might, you know, I might do something like that.
Right.
I think anything under 180 watts is just not a big deal. If you really kind of think about overall how much your system eats with just the processor, hard drives, motherboards, and add in a video card. Now, if you're getting up to 225 watts and higher,
and that's only important while you're gaming, right? Like, so what may be more important is what does the system do when it's at idle? How much power does it use at idle? How quiet is it at idle, right? When you're gaming, hopefully you've either got headphones on or you've got speakers on. There's not a lot of people that are sitting there playing games on mute that they're worried about the sound. There are exceptions to that, dustbusters in particular, right? But I think, you know, unless it gets real extreme, that as long as it's adequate, I tend to think that people will heavily favor performance per dollar as opposed to performance per watt or, you know, noise per dollar. I don't really know what metric you would make up for that, right? So I don't know. It's interesting. It's a complete lineup. We'll have to see. The prices of these cards tend to kind of shift a little bit, and once you get below the $200 mark, things get crowded, and $10 can really make a difference here and there. So to power your GTX 650 Ti, maybe you need a new power supply. How about the Seasonic X Series 1250 watt gold?
Because you need a 1250 watt power supply to power a 650 Ti.
I bet this could power all kinds of 650 Ti's in your system.
All the 650 Ti's.
So this is a review Lee posted up. It's a 1050/1250, right? So there's two versions of it. We reviewed the 1250 watt model, 80 plus gold certified, fully modular, up to 104 amps on the 12 volt line. So that's like a lot of amps, I think, guys. I'm not sure, but I think that's a lot of amps. And let me look and make sure here. It's gold. That's kind of nice. And it has a fan control hybrid normal switch on there. You know, weaknesses noted none. We got an editor's choice. We don't give away a lot of those, actually. Very good efficiency across a broad range of loads, according to Lee. Low AC ripple, silent fanless operation at lower power levels. Again, that's perfect for your 650 Ti because it's going to be quiet as well. And single 12 volt output can deliver up to 1248 watts. So, yeah. And it has 8 PCIe connectors, so you could put 8 650 Ti's in there. That's all I got. Go ahead and check out that review if you're looking for high-powered power supplies. We're trying to solicit some lower wattage parts, and everybody likes to send their flagships out. They know they're going to get, you know, high readership, high value out of those reviews. But we're trying to get some 500s and that kind of stuff to see how they stack up. So look for those coming up pretty soon. All right, and our last minute edition. We always have these on the podcast. I don't know if you guys noticed this. We always have somebody pushing out that review right before the podcast, like it's some artificial deadline that we have. Right, Al?
I would say it's pretty natural deadline because it's 8 o'clock every Wednesday Mountain Time. Yeah,
but nobody lives in Mountain Time, right? I mean,
well, the three of us do.
Right. So let's talk to Alan about the Western Digital, a 4 terabyte hard drive.
There it is, 4 TBs.
4.0 TBs. He's got all the TBs.
Maybe you could do that back and forth in front of your
Tuberculosis.
camera a little more to give us the 3D effect.
Ooh. There you go. Anyway.
It doesn't work.
Now, if we only had smell-o-vision.
Yes. Now with artificial 3D smell-o-vision, like Josh enjoys. All right, so another RE series drive, right? Usually Western Digital comes out with the greens and whatever capacity, and then they come out with an RE series. This time, there is no green 4 terabyte. There is no red 4 terabyte. This is basically their flagship in the capacity. I'm guessing they just figured out that 4 terabyte drives just don't sell very much to the regular consumer market.
Right.
Just a hunch. It's just people don't tend to need that large of a drive just yet in a single drive. If they are going that large, they're probably doing some form of RAID anyway. And by that I mean like home RAID, in other words, like with Reds. So this is the drive for enterprise, right? This is what you're going to put in. Just imagine servers just full of these guys, and those
Right.
enterprise kinds of uses usually use nothing but the RE series in them most of the time. So this is the next link in the chain. Higher density platters. With that comes faster sequentials, right? The peak sequential transfer rates we saw was like 180 meg per second. The high, the average, and the low was actually pretty good. Like, in other words, almost up to Velociraptor 1 terabyte speeds, and just walking all over everything else naturally. Mainly because this is a 7,200 RPM drive and higher density and all that. So it had a bunch of things working for it.
Hey, I just realized in this picture, the 4 terabyte hard drive is not there.
Correct. That's all the rest of the drives.
Gotcha.
I was lazy this time. I didn't bust out all the other drives to do the little photo op. Yeah, I mean, good stuff. The only weakness we saw, which was not that much of a weakness, but the access times, the seeks were just a little bit slower.
Yeah.
Compared with the 2 terabyte models. I'm assuming because it's just a bigger head pack. There's just more mass to fling around there back and forth to accomplish the seeks. Where we saw that sort of stack up against it slightly is, and I'm talking like maybe 5% lower, if that. In the IO meter page, you could see that if you compare the RE4 with the RE, then it's just going to be, a little bit different, right?
Gotcha.
And actually, I need to fix a typo in the charts because the 4 terabyte is called the RE4 and it's not an RE4. Anyway, yeah, so it's just slightly behind the 2 terabyte model, which was the last one to come out. And again, that's just a little bit longer on each seek time. You amplify that across a bunch of IOs per second. That's just what you get. Sits a little bit lower. It probably would be dead close to it, maybe even a little bit better than that if maybe the density was just a little bit higher and the throughput was a little bit higher on each one of those seeks, but it's kind of hard to make that stack up.
How confident
bunch of
are you in external devices being able to run these 4 terabyte drives? We're going to have issues like we did when the first 3 terabyte drives came out?
Any hurdle you had to get over to go from 2 to 3 is the same hurdle to go from 3 to 4. In other words, if you've already met that hurdle, then you're good, or at least you should be. Because it's just a different number of bits for the accessing the capacity. So once you made that step, that I forget what the terabyte capacity that puts you at, but it's something insanely high. Like,
Okay.
yeah, just way up there. So unless it's some random incompatibility kind of thing, or somebody made a driver specifically only to handle 3 terabyte as some sort of workaround.
So if I have an external RAID array, maybe a Pegasus Thunderbolt based array, if it can handle 3 terabyte drives, it should be able to handle the 4s.
Correct.
Good
Chances are it can handle it.
Okay.
That's it.
So what about, did we talk about pricing on this at all yet?
All we have is MSRPs. I couldn't find them anywhere except for like on Amazon for some
Right.
insanely high gouging price from some distributor. But the 4 terabyte model is supposed to be $459 MSRP. It's kind of up there. But it's around on par for an RE series drive as far as cost per gig goes.
Right.
I would imagine it would drop a little bit after it comes out, but these really aren't the things you expect to be putting in like your home. I know, Ryan, I know you tend to be a little cautious on your RAID stuff, so you might want to go for these, but
No.
I don't put, I'm not going to put any more RAID arrays in my personal systems. I'm just going to put all the data in like a Drobo or a Thunderbolt drive or something.
Store it on the cloud,
Make
right?
Dropbox do it. I do a lot of that.
don't store it in the cloud. We don't want him taking the whole cloud down.
I'll do it. You guys will all suffer.
The whole thing.
So, okay. Anything else we can expect coming up this week from you?
Decoder tomorrow, hopefully.
Okay.
I got the spreadsheet with a bunch of additions, but
All right.
I got to put a bow on it.
We do. Package it up nice and pretty.
Yes.
Pretty.
All right. You know what time it is? I think it's time to bring back our sponsor who was missing last week. We still love our friends at alxtech.net for hosting gaming servers for us. But this week, we want to say hello to our friend Alex from MSI.
The all-new Z77 M-Power mainboard from MSI is poised to change the overclocking game. Every Z77 M-Power board will have a factory 24-hour military-class burn-in test completed before shipping. Additionally, performance-optimized features such as Go-To BIOS, Multi-BIOS 2, V-Check points, Bluetooth 3.0, and onboard Wi-Fi allow users convenience and total system control over their overclocking and gaming experience. This is the new endurance champion, Z77 M-Power from MSI.
There you go. Thank you, Alex, and MSI for their support of our wonderful, absolutely amazingly informative podcast. Right, guys?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Everybody
Definitely.
agree. Okay, good. So let's go through some news. We'll run through some of this. Not a whole lot of it needs a lot of discussion or detail here. Lenovo opening production lines in the U.S. Apparently 115 new jobs coming in North Carolina. I don't know about you guys. I thought it would be a lot more jobs than that. But I guess production lines are so automated that that's what the whole problem is, right? Is robots. Because screw robots.
Because they're going to take over the world and
Right.
hopefully wipe my behind when I'm in their
They can do that now.
battery
I
thing.
wouldn't trust them, but could just be a guy dressed up like a robot. You never know. You never know. This might have a little bit more interesting discussion. Josh, Qualcomm has signed on and joined the HSA Foundation, the Heterogeneous Systems Architecture Foundation, something that was announced back at the AMD Fusion Developer Summit in June. And it's kind of interesting now because we have a ton of the major guys on here. I'm trying to remember exactly who it is. We've got AMD, TI.
Imagination Technologies.
Okay.
Samsung.
Qualcomm. Is Samsung? I don't think Samsung
Yep.
is. Is
I
Samsung
think
is.
they were
Apple's
originally-
not. Know that. I'm trying to think.
The two big
well,
ones that are missing are Intel and Nvidia.
NVIDIA. And that's it. And it's kind of interesting because all of the people who are doing graphics for the ARM industry, ARM does Mali, Imagination does their Power VR, and then Qualcomm does their own Adreno. And those three major guys are all in the HSA Foundation right now. Again, the only one who's missing is NVIDIA, and of course, Intel, as you mentioned. But this is a huge jump for HSA, and as you well remember, Eric Demers joined Qualcomm from AMD, and I think that he had probably some positive impact in getting them to join up. But this is a huge feather in the cap for AMD and the group that they kind of helped to form. But it's something that is certainly needed as graphics are becoming more and more important for stinking cell phones to make them look nice, to scroll nice, to play the latest video games. But when you start looking at how much of the die is actually given to graphics, it's growing and growing. And so it makes more sense to be able to program the software environment to take advantage of that, kind of utilized silicon if you're not in a graphics program.
Right.
Because the more you can get out of it, the quicker that CPU as a whole can go into a sleep mode or a lower power mode. And so, they don't just want empty pieces of, underutilized pieces of die just sitting there when they can get more work done faster, get into sleep mode faster. And so this is it's a really big thing to help HSA go further. If we kind of look in the past at like the Hypertransport consortium, it got some pretty decent names in there, but it didn't get any of the really, really big ones. And so it was like, NVIDIA, I think Apple, and, of course, AMD and a couple others, but they didn't have the support of the big guys like IBM. If IBM had joined, then perhaps we would see, a greater diversity of products using Hypertransport today. So, yeah, getting Qualcomm on is huge, as they're one of the companies shipping the most ICs in the world right now, and we can even compare that to Intel, because if you consider how many Qualcomm-based cell phones are out in the wild, it is a significant number, far more than what Intel is able to do, not just with their new Medfield stuff, but even just x86 processors. So it's kind of interesting. 1 billion a year mobile processors are expected to be shipped, and that's going to be like 1.2 billion next year, and Qualcomm has a very significant chunk
Yeah.
of that.
One thing I can tell you for sure is that the HSA Foundation's website loves Web 2.0 graphic styling. If you look here, got that, got that. This image is interesting. So this is the honeycomb image that was there when they launched. There were only 6 when they first launched, right? You had ARM, Imagination, Texas Instruments, AMD, MediaTek, Samsung. They've added Qualcomm. There's still one blank one. Still one blank. Do you think it could be NVIDIA?
It would make the most sense, but that whole dirty, rotten feeling in between AMD and Nvidia is very much present.
See, I believe Intel has the power to like avoid all this kind of crap, and they could still try to flex their muscle and their money and stay away from any kind of these foundations and memberships and conglomerations. I don't know if NVIDIA can. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Expect this to be the first of many tablet, touchscreen, laptops, ultrabooks discussions between now and, say, forever. At least the end of the year. Acer showed off their Iconia W700 and I think a W510 starting availability October 26th. They were first shown at Computex this year in June. So this W700 is the top-end tablet. It will be based on Ivy Bridge, Core i3 or i5, 64 gig or 128 gig SSD, HD 4000 graphics, and a battery that allegedly provides up to 8 hours of usage. That hardware is powering an 11.6-inch IPS display that is 1080p resolution. So you can see here, if you look at the picture, it's not super thin. It's not super light. It's just kind of there. It's got a nice dock that you set it in, that you can have a keyboard and all that kind of stuff attached to it. Then you're working on an 11.6-inch desktop for whoever wants to do that. Obviously, it has Wi-Fi, 3 USB 3.0 ports, Thunderbolt port, nice, micro HDMI port, headphone output, DC power, all that kind of stuff. They say it's going to be 1.5 inches thick and weighs 2.3 pounds. So, and apparently this accessory dock will hold it at a 70-degree for reading, 20-degree for angled touchscreen. The dock can also hold the W700 tablet in portrait mode. So lots of interesting stuff there. Oh, but let's not forget the pricing. The pricing of the W700 will range from $799 to $999, depending on the hardware configuration. And then if you want the extended 2-year warranty and Pro model, $1,049.99. So what do you guys think about a $800 to $1,000 11-inch Windows 8-bay touch screen tablet?
Makes a nice frisbee.
Jeremy, you just waiting in line to buy some of these?
Oh, I'm actually already in line. This is a body double here because I just can't get enough of these over $1,000 machines that can't really do everything I want them to.
Well, maybe we'll all be interested more in the Iconia 510. This is a convertible tablet as well. This is 10.1 inch, 1.27 pounds, 0.35 inch thick. So this is much more, I would say, reasonably sized for a portable tablet device. Has a 1366 by 768 panel, touch input, Gorilla Glass, 1080p video, all that kind of stuff. What do we got here? Oh, this is the one using the new Clover Trail processor. This is the dual-core Atom, 1.5 gigahertz, 2 gigs of RAM, 64 gig solid-state type system. So it will be considerably slower than the Ivy Bridge-based platforms. But it's smaller. Comes with it doesn't come with. It has an optional $150 keyboard dock that adds physical keyboard, trackpad, secondary battery, very similar to what Asus did with the Transformer lineup. Thanks, Ken. And the dock does add, or the keyboard does add one additional USB keyboard. Acer's claiming 9 hours of battery life. With the dock connected, they're claiming to get 18 hours of battery life. So again, very similar idea to what you got with the Asus.
That must be a very heavy dock, because scroll up, Ken. Don't you think that damn thing would fall over with... Look at all that mass at the top, especially the Gorilla Glass. I think you used double-sided tape on that stinking thing to get it flat.
Yeah, I don't know. So they're both claiming 9 hours of battery life. So the batteries are essentially of the same weight in each device. So maybe they have suction cups in the bottom. Maybe that.
Yeah.
Magnets.
So
Aliens.
The 510 will be available on November 9th, and the one with the 32 gig SSD and no dock will MSRP for $499. So now we're getting much more down into the reasonable price range, but keep in mind you're getting a much slower device. So you're getting a slower device, but it's thinner, lighter, should last longer, right? As opposed to getting a more powerful device that's thicker, heavier, it lasts maybe a little bit less. So starting at $499, and then you can get a 64 gig version with the keyboard dock for $749. So it's pretty similar to the Asus Transformer pricing, right? That's kind of out. So I'll be curious to see. Now keep in mind this is x86 running Windows 8. It's not running Windows RT. It's not running Android or anything like that. This is a full regular system, so you'd be able to put any of your applications on it, use any of your USB devices or anything like that. You don't have to worry about performance. The question is, do the Clover Trail tablets indicate a resurgence of the netbook? Are we going to have people that buy all these things, use them, think they're awesome for 6 months to a year, and then down the line go, you know what? It turned out I couldn't really do everything I wanted to do on this. Turns out I didn't have enough performance, and the battery life advantage
Intel
wasn't
needs
that
to
great.
rebrand this the Ultra book.
The Ultra tablet. Ultra. It's not a book because
Tabletsaurus.
Tablets. Yeah. So, like I said, there's going to be tons of these devices. We had some from Lenovo that were announced using Windows for WinRT. This is going to, but between now and Windows 8 launch on October 26th, there's going to be a ton of them, and probably for the whole holiday season, there's going to be a ton of them. Let's move on to more component stuff. Jeremy, do you want to tell me about the PowerColor 7990 that's not a Devil 13 model?
Well, no, it's not exactly the Devil 13 model, which we sort of have seen in the past, which is...
We saw it. We don't know if it ever was released, but yeah.
Yeah, but we saw it. But this one supposedly is actually a real thing. And at some point you'll be able to buy it for $900. But it's got two 7970 GPUs on it, slightly underclocked down to 900 megahertz default as opposed to the 925 that you'd be used to. The memory stays at the same basic clock, so 1 gigahertz. And it's got 3 gigabytes per GPU, so a total of 6. Or sorry, the memory's clocked at 1375 megahertz. That's right.
Gotcha.
It is, as you can see, a triple slot brick.
It is.
It pretty much has the same measurements as your average brick you'd build the house out of, and probably weighs about the same. It also uses 3 8-pin PCI Express connectors, so it doesn't sip power as much as guzzles it completely down the drain. On the other hand, if you're stuck in a situation where you can't have two 7970s for whatever reason, and you want 2 of those GPUs on a single PCB, you can do it with this monster if it ever actually does arrive. And with the outputs of 2 DVIs and HDMI and 2 mini display ports, you're actually going to be able to push this thing. You're not going to be stuck on one bloody monitor. What I seem to not be able to make out is whether or not there's a Crossfire connector on it. I would assume there is not. If there was, I'd be quite impressed.
There could be.
There could be.
Their support 4-way.
Yeah, it would be an interesting 4-way, but...
if only that red light would
are.
blink and it'd make a grinding sound.
I think it's interesting that the fans are different sizes. There's
Yes,
two
they are.
92 millimeter fans and one
And then an
80
80.
millimeter fan. What the hell?
It's going to make some interesting noise.
Just pick some.
So that way it's getting you at the higher frequency and the slightly lower frequency at the same time.
hit all aces there. Nice.
And it will make a great doorstop come 2 years from now.
Oh, it's home defense. There's all sorts of uses for this when it doesn't work anymore.
Nice.
Hey, it's asymmetrical fan sizes.
Yeah.
It's Apple. It's an Apple thing. They stole it.
Oh, damn
Oh,
it.
they're going to get sued.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
done for. They're done for.
That's it. All video cards are done now.
So we talked about tablets a little bit. We talked about the Acer ones based on Ivy Bridge and Clover Trail. One of the things I saw while I was at IDF was that September? Was that just last month? Yeah, it was. AMD says, hey, we still make processors for tablets, and they officially announced, whatever you want to call it, the updated Z series of APUs. This is the Z60 APU. It's they're pushing it for Windows 8 tablets. They're trying to go after the same market that Clover Trail is going after. They claim they can have tablets that are as thin as 10 millimeters. I don't.
If they went for really high resolution, I could almost see it. Like beat the 1368, just toss it out, go for something significantly better.
This is still the same Brazos platform. Right, it's slightly updated, but it's the same CPU architecture. It's the same APU. It's the same GPU architecture. Nothing's really changed. The specifications have changed. That instead of a TDP of 5.9 watts, we're down to 4.5 watts, and they've added USB 3.0 support, which is good. I want to say that the Clover Trail part is like a 3-watt TDP. I'm not 100% sure what it is. AMD is claiming to be able to get 8 hours of battery life with like
6 hours of video.
Yeah, but I think they had like a 30-day standby time or something like that too, didn't they? I don't remember. They were making the case that, hey, we have tablets. We have partners that are going to make tablets using our parts, and we think they're going to be better because of it, better performing at the same battery life. The problem is, as we saw announcements from Acer and Asus and Lenovo about Intel tablets and ARM-based tablets, I have seen 0 announcements for anything based on the Z60 APU. And that's really important. If you're going to sell APUs, you have to have systems that use APUs in order for people to go to the store and buy them, right? It obviously makes sense. And I don't know how far along they are, because when we were at IDF, the 10 millimeter thick one they showed me was a non-working sample. They're like, here's what it will look like. Like, we promise we can get it in this form factor and it will work, and you will get a big enough battery to get 8 hours of battery life out of it. And I was like, well, that's great, but we can't take anybody at their word for that kind of stuff, right? So hopefully, I think it's pretty obvious at this point that they're not going to have anything, at least from a big name vendor, for sale on October 26th when Windows 8 launches. Otherwise, we would start to hear about some of that kind of stuff. So.
I kind of wonder if this isn't like NVIDIA's original Tegra. They didn't produce it to be really popular. They kind of produced it to have a baseline, figure out how everything works, and then introduce a better product the next round. Because at 40 nanometers, that's still pretty much the largest IC, non-ARM based that you can do. I mean, Qualcomm's got 28 nanometers, Samsung's got 32 nanometer. All the other guys are going down to 28 nanometer as well. And so I just kind of wonder if AMD isn't just kind of testing the market. We're going to see like a handful of design wins by December, and it really is only to get a first shot off to see how it goes.
Yeah, but
isn't that kind of like the new Coke theory, though? If you sell them something really crappy, then when you come out with something half decent, they'll really love it.
But even that won't work, because the Z01, like, this platform's already been around. They're just like, hey, we've made a slightly lower TDP version.
But it's got a better Southbridge to it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. We will see. Other news, Logitech is getting into the mechanical keyboard market. Apparently they found out that they're popular. So the G710 Plus, as Scott writes, is their brand new mechanical gaming keyboard. It contains Cherry MX brown switches along with a full set of media keys, macro keys, and a number pad. While the brown switches tend to be fairly quiet on their own, Logitech has included damping O-rings under each keycap to make it even more silent than most large mechanical keyboard competitors.
So you're talking about O-rings.
Yes.
Gotta do O.
Yeah.
Show me your O-ring.
No.
Yeah.
They're also it's also white LED backlit with the option to customize brightness, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. So expect to see it in retail for $149, and this month actually in October. So it'll be interesting to see, because Logitech, we use a lot of Logitech keyboards. Be curious to see kind of how their Cherry switch integration is. Our main problem is we use some of the Corsair ones, and they are too loud to use on video. They are too loud to use when we're recording and that kind of stuff. So if they were able to silence things down, we'll give it a shot. We'll talk about it at some. Jeremy, you want to tell us about another Thermaltake Level 10 case, the GT Battle Edition.
It is indeed the Battle Edition. Comes in camo and pretends to be a 5.56 ammo case, if that's sort of your theme for the time. But overall, it holds a lot of the same sort of ideas that the Level 10 series has. So you've got hot swappable hard drive ports, which you can see there.
Those are
Did you just snort a line or something?
Yeah.
I don't think I'm doing good enough in this. I got to snort one. Oh, okay, everybody. Yo, the Level 10 GT. Jeez.
How about three
Talk faster.
200mm fans, an extra 140mm, and just an extra 120mm tossed in there, just in case you actually wanted to use it. External USB 3.0 connections, lots of water cooling grommets if you want to do an external cooler on it, and strangely enough, it's actually plastic. So, and on the one hand, it's SECC and the front bezel is all plastic. So you'd think that would sort of bring the price down. It doesn't. It's still about $300. On the other hand, it's going to bring the weight down significantly so that it's not going to be quite so bad. It's only about 28 pounds. Some of these cases have been significantly heavier. It's a monstrous case. So no matter how big of a CPU cooler you want to work in there, it's going to fit. I can't guarantee you it won't block the RAM slots on your motherboard.
$300.
Yeah, $300.
That seems
A
excessive.
lot of cheddar.
It's a lot for a case, but I mean, on the other hand, if you're really going for a system where you want to be able to fit 4 GPUs in there, and you want to make sure that it's not going to be very loud, and that for whatever reason you want to be able to hot swap your drives all the time. Hey,
Yeah,
it's
but
good.
it's not Scottish, so it's crap.
But it does have a headset hanger.
I do like that, actually.
You really? You're sold on that whole headset hanger?
I'm not. It's not $300.
That is worth $100 right there.
Oh, okay.
Right there. Yeah.
Or I could get a coat hanger and some gaff tape and do it myself, I guess. All right.
But, I mean, all of the Level 10 GTs are around that price or higher. Right?
Or
The Snow
higher,
Edition
yes.
they put out is about $20 or $30 cheaper.
Yeah.
The Level 10 GT black one, I think, was about $250 or so. So, I mean, if you're shopping for one of these Thermaltake Level 10s, you're planning on spending a lot of money,
Fair enough.
be it Scottish or not.
All right. Our last news story for the day is actually a really good write-up on something that AMD just announced today. So AMD has launched graphics cards. They've launched Trinity recently. They've launched the Z60. Now they're launching RAMDisk. Serious, guys. They're kind of partnering with, what's the company name?
Team Ramrod?
No. Close. Data RAM. That makes, I don't know if this is the same company that made the software and that storage system we reviewed a while ago, but the idea of a RAM disk is pretty simple. You have lots of memory. You don't need all of it. Let's take some subsection of it and convert it into a disk drive, according, that Windows sees as a drive. And AMD has its own branded memory now, and they're offering you the capability to go download. It's not really a trial. It's just like a not fully functional version of RAMDisk software that if you don't have AMD Radeon memory, you can do a 4 gig RAM disk for free. If you do have AMD Radeon memory, you can do a 6 gig RAM disk for free. If you buy the full software, you can do whatever capacity you want up to the size of memory you have accordingly. AMD claims that you can get as high as 25,600 megabytes per second with DDR3 1600 RAM and up to 1,700% faster game loading times than a traditional mechanical hard drive. So it's $18.99, by the way. The software is $18.99 for the full version, so it might be something worth looking at. 17,000% faster game loading times. Now, the trick here, Alan, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, is that when you boot your machine, it still has to copy all that data into memory.
Yep.
Each time. So if you reboot your system, so you install the game to the RAM disk, and you shut down the system. It has to write maybe not all the data, but all the data that has changed back to your hard drive. Or hopefully
but when you boot back up, it has to read all of it.
And when you boot back up, it has to read all that data, hopefully from an SSD, back into
SSD to
your
RAM
memory.
disk isn't going to hurt too much.
It shouldn't take very long.
It'll
Right.
still take some time.
Really?
I mean,
Well, yeah.
And we were talking about
It's an
6
image.
gigs.
Come on.
6
How
gigs?
long is that going to take?
12 seconds. Status 6.
Well, okay. So from the time you boot up, you got to wait 12 seconds.
Yeah, my 15-second boot up is going to be extended to 27, which is better than the 45
and the
seconds.
and the-
it took.
and the
No, I
benefit
think
here is-
That's it. All bets are off. I don't want to do it
But
anymore.
the benefit is
way
if-
too long.
Like if you're like me, I almost never reboot my computer. So
True.
it's not going to affect you like every 40 minutes. So if you play Battlefield 3, exit out, come back several hours later, play more Battlefield 3, you should get the 17% faster game loading time. 1700%.
Yeah, but how much- How big is this game versus how, versus
So
how much
you might
RAM
have
you
to
have to
buy
eat
the
up
full
for the RAM
version.
disk, and how much you're going to have left over, and how much more swapping it's going to have to do to the hard drive on account of the fact that you just ate up 3/4
So
of your
think
RAM with the
about
RAM
this.
disk.
You buy this 16 gig. You win this Corsair Dominator 16 gig pack. You
How big is
set
the game?
Is it
I don't
AMD
know.
certified?
10 gigs.
So that will only leave you 6
16. I just copied the folder over. So it's 16 gigs. So you got to get the 32 gig kit is what I'm telling you.
See, there you go.
You get a 32 gig memory kit, which again are not super expensive,
That's true.
right? So now all of a sudden you make 24 gigs for a RAM disk and 8 gigs for your system, right? Now you're talking about it being useful. And you can install games to it. But even if you
But then you've put 24 gig worth of game images in there,
Uh-huh.
which is going to have to spend a minute on every reboot.
every reboot, which you may do once every 3 weeks,
I suppose.
right? So I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm just saying it's an interesting solution, especially if you can go to AMD's website and try it out for free. You can only get 4 or 6 gigs for free, but if you got a smaller game or some applications that you use all the time, you can start to see some of the differences. Tim did a really, really good write-up on the website that just went up a little bit before we started the podcast. So the free version goes up to 4 or 6, depending on your memory brand, and then the paid version gets up to 64 gigs. So he goes through the installation, and he did these tests. Here, look at this benchmark. He used HD Tune for read transfer rates. So while his traditional hard drive was getting 137 maximum read speeds, and his Intel X25M G2 SSD was getting 211, his RAM disk was getting 4,403 megabytes per second.
Yeah.
Hence, we get our 1,700% increases
Kinda
or
quick.
whatever, right? And then look at the burst speeds. You go from 100 megabytes to 5.1 gigabytes. Not a perfect use case because it's not flash memory, right? This is using your system memory. So when you shut down your system or reboot it, it all goes away. So it has to write it and read it. Which can be a hindrance if you reboot your system a lot. This is probably not going to make a lot of sense. If you do not reboot your system a lot, it can make a lot of sense. And we can really easily make fun of this as being like, what in the hell is AMD doing getting involved in this kind of thing? They don't even make memory. They sell a branding program for memory in order to kind of get people to use more memory. But that's fine, right? I don't really care who's pushing it, as long as somebody's pushing it. Here's something you can do with new technology. Memory is super cheap. Buy 32 gigs. Do something cool like this. And they're not even saying you have to use an APU or you have to use an AMD processor. They're not even giving you those restrictions. If you're running an Intel Z77 Ivy Bridge, download this software, the free version off their link. Try it out for the 4 gigabyte RAM disk. See if it does anything that you're interested in, and then maybe pay the less than $20 cost to upgrade to the full version. I don't know why we don't use this more here for stuff. If it would be useful for us in our video editing purposes or anything like that, you copy your current working project to a 64 gig RAM disk.
Yeah, and then watch
Actually,
it go
that's
away
a
when the
perfect
power
medium
goes
for
out.
you, Ryan. A media that destroys itself every time you turn it
Yeah.
off and on again. It's just perfect for
It
you.
is perfect for me. I think the software is constantly writing the data back. Maybe not. To
So then when
SSD,
you
I don't
blue
know.
screen in the middle of something, you all of it might have been updated back to the disk, maybe.
Ken should save often, is all I'm saying.
To the RAM
I
disk.
don't know. Don't put your important documents on a RAM disk. Fine. Jeez, you guys are such downers.
Be better off putting it on a RAID, even you.
Oh.
No.
Oh. Yeah, we're going to put ours on a Thunderbolt RAID array here. fairly soon too. So
is it time for a old hardware moment?
before our hardware picks of the week, this is where we go to Josh, our legacy PC hardware enthusiast,
Otherwise known as the hoarder.
or the old guy, to tell us about stuff.
Do you like my boombox?
Oh my God.
What the hell is that?
Do you know what video card this is?
Obviously, the answer is no.
I'm gonna put some cardboard down and do some breakdancing here shortly.
No,
Tell me what it
you
is.
better not.
Damn it.
I think Knight may even he does know what it is. This was a LeadTech WinFast A350 based on the GeForce FX 5900 GPU.
With fans
It's-
guaranteed to clog quicker than the
it's-
normal
well,
fans.
Oh yeah, these it's horrific. One is input and one is output, and so it actually had
It circulates the dust.
exactly
Push pull. Yeah,
circulates.
it just
You could
makes a
always tell
loop,
which one was
like
the input
right there.
because it's just caked, absolutely caked.
I think Crimson Ghost in the chat room just coined our new segment called the Hardware Hoarder.
The hardware order. Yeah, it was a single slot card, except of course for these slightly
What crap.
beveled,
Guaranteed to short out the
Ooh, they're
next card over.
angled, too.
Okay, I'll have to bring in the OCZ Synapse. I also was going through my closet because Ken had this idea of recording video of me like going through my old office and like finding stuff. It would need a lot of editing. But I went out and I went back and I found the best video card that was ever released. Do you know what it was, Josh?
The best video card ever.
Best video card ever released.
Voodoo Graphics.
No, like the one that like really changed the way performance per dollar was done.
9700 Pro.
Exactly. That is the exact card. And I have 3 of those still.
Wow.
And I would love to find like an AGP motherboard and try to do something with that kind of crap. I don't know. The 9700 Pro was the card that changed. Like that's when we decided to do video card reviews really at amdmb.com at the time. No, I have no idea if these cards work, Knight Rider. I've got lots of AGP motherboards. I don't know. None of them have been powered on in quite a long time. But
They all have the capacitor flaw, so they're all going to blow up as soon as you turn any of them on.
That's sad. All right, let's get to our hardware software picks of the week before we diverge into old hardware discussion. Mine is a kind of a cheat here because this is just what happened to be sitting on my desk. I am a power user of cell phones, meaning I drain their batteries very quickly. And anybody that knows me knows that, especially when I'm going out of town or traveling, that I tend to have these extended batteries because I have to have them. And if I can't communicate with the outside world, I feel naked, both inside and out. So I have a Galaxy Nexus on Sprint, and I was running into issues where when I would go to areas with low cell phone coverage, running out of battery, the normal reasons. So I bought this battery, and actually, from this distance, it doesn't even look that bad.
Sure looks thick to me.
Yeah, it does. So this is the standard battery for this phone is 1850 milliamp hours, sorry, 1850. This one is 3900, so it's more than twice as much. And my favorite feature of the HTC Evo, it returns the kickstand. Oh, what's up, dog?
Is it so when you pick that up, do you say, I'm not answering this phone till the kickstand goes down? Wait,
I don't get
doesn't
it.
make it.
I don't get it.
Ah, damn it.
I don't get it. So, but here's a close up, not really kind of it, but it makes the phone thicker. Yes, it makes it heavier. It's not super. It's not really bad. Thankfully we're getting into the winter seasons. I'll be wearing jackets and coats a lot. Not a big deal about putting a bigger phone in your pocket, but yeah, it's nice. It's not cheap though. I think I got mine on Amazon for $89. They're $98 from the vendor specifically. But I think I got it for $89. So it's a significant upgrade cost, but also important here. The NFC functionality of the phone still works with this battery, which may not work on other extended batteries. So when I went to buy my $10.50 beer at the Reds game last night, I could use it to NFC my purchase through Google.
How does that work when you change the battery? Do you have to configure it over to the other?
No, what it does is when you open up Google Wallet, it says setting up NFC, or setting up your Google Wallet is what it says, and then it's copying the data into the NFC portion of the battery.
Oh.
So it did, when I started up Google Wallet, it did have to like reinitialize, but it was 15 seconds or whatever it was. Same amount of time it would take you to pick a different credit card to use in Google Wallet. No difference there. So, but I was surprised it worked, and no issues.
But if it was on a RAM disk, you wouldn't even have to wait that long.
Yeah.
1,700% faster.
That's, next week, Ryan's going to have this big chunking thing on the back of his cell phone. It's going to have 32 gig of RAM on it.
Yeah. Jeremy, what do you got?
Well, a couple of times we've mentioned Magnetoresistive RAM, a new technology that's sort of coming out that may well sort of overcome one of the problems with our standard RAM that Alan's pointed out in the past, which is as the process gets smaller and smaller and capacity gets higher, the chances of your RAM dying significant, almost exponentially increase. So the nice thing about magnetoresistive RAM is that essentially it's almost unkillable, and it will hold data even without power on it.
RAMDisk.
Yeah, permanent RAM disk. So, it's something that companies like Samsung and that are just starting to work on. But over at Hackaday, they've got a source where you can actually pick up a couple of relatively small MRAM chips just to play around with to see how it works. 4 megabytes is $20. There's smaller availability chips. So, if you want to sort of play around with MRAM and see what exactly it is, and maybe see if you can solder it into a Raspberry Pi or something.
I was gonna say, do I have to get my soldering iron out for this? Because
you're literally buying chips, and from there it's up to you to make your PCB and play. But it's sort of nice to be able to play with that sort of thing, like the ye old Radio Shack when you went in and ordered by part and could
that's
build
exactly
yourself
what
a
this
nice
looks
little
like,
something.
doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So anyone out there who wants to, play with what probably is going to be the next main memory technology hitting the market, there's a way to do it.
40 megahertz.
It's not quick yet.
Is that faster than SSD speed still, Alan?
40 megahertz on one chip?
Yeah.
Well, if you put them behind a controller and there were 8 channels, it'd be probably comparable. It'd be on the slow side, but it would be.
All right.
It's not horror. It's not.
And like you say, it's still a very young technology. So.
Oh sure, no, I know that's
faster.
yeah. No, I gotcha. All right, Josh, you're up.
Me. Video cards are cheap. I stole this directly from a user in our chat room. But you can now get a PowerColor 7870 for under $200, $194.99.
What is a
Out of
power
stock.
jack?
Power what?
It says free power jack.
It also says out of stock.
Keanu Reeves will come and double your memory.
What the hell is the power
it's
jack?
out of stock. What's up with that?
No,
Still.
yeah.
Keep an eye on it.
Power jack. Why don't I see that on here anywhere? I want to know what that is. No more
Well,
searching.
see, you know how your phone has a kickstand?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
this thing's actually
That has
got a
a power
power
jack.
jack.
Oh, it's got a 3-prong outlet on the inside of it.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Let me look on the. Let's see. No.
Generates its own electricity.
No.
Nice.
No, nothing. All right.
Oh, it's a turbine too. I see.
Alan. Next.
Okay, so say you wanted to build a whole bunch of storage,
Holy crap.
like a whole bunch, and you wanted to build it in a really small place. Well, there's this company called
Rhode Island.
Backblaze, and they sell like online storage kind of deals. Some kind of family plan. It's like an online backup, that sort of thing. They went ahead and wrote a blog post. What was it? A few months back. Actually, no, a year
July.
and a few months back.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2011.
Sorry, 2011.
Um, Yeah, look at that. And could you imagine they were actually using 3 terabyte hard drives? So that tells you how long those have been around. So they use these Pod 2.0, whatever this plan is, so they use it for their own business. Well, they went ahead and they just posted the entire.
Nice
if you
rack.
scroll down some further, they posted the entire build plan. Like this is, and you can even order the case itself from ProtoCase. So this is a 4U chassis that you can fit 45 desktop size hard drives into.
I have some cases. I have some 4U cases.
Well, I mean, you'd want to use this kind of case for that, but it's like a dual power supply. It's like a super micro motherboard. They tell you exactly what cards to use to chain all the drives together. the port multiplier cards to use, everything. You know that it works together because these guys have like 100 or so of these things, if not more, up and running. It's kind of cool. It's kind of a cool idea. Now, I mean, it's kind of expensive too, because if you wanted to order just the chassis, it's like $800.
Right, but if you're an enterprise, look at this chart here on cost of petabyte over 3 years.
Yeah,
So,
it's really, I mean, this is about as cheap as you can put together.
So they're saying $56,000 or $95,000 for hardware plus space and power. $500,000 from Dell and $2.4 million from Amazon Web Services.
Yep, and their argument on that was even if it was something where a company came out and installed whatever that gear was, this thing could be built for cheaper than like 1 year worth of the support contract from like a typical.
So here's the whole
company.
spec sheet, the whole price list.
Yeah,
45
it's all the parts.
3 terabyte
So-
drives.
And you don't have to build that exact thing, but you can definitely use those parts as like a base for like, you know, what kind of serial ATA card should I use? What kind of port multiplier card should I use? You know, and you just pick them right off of there. However many drives you want to hook up, just go with that.
So, I mean, and think this is a $7,300 build, but $5,400 of that is hard drive. So if you want to, is this something you can build and expand on?
Sure, yeah, you could build that and throw 4 terabyte hard drives in it. So if
No, I
you
mean,
want
like if I wanted to build it with 5 3 terabyte hard drives today.
Sure, it's going to be pretty empty, but
Yeah, you got room to expand.
yeah, you could just keep adding drives. You very well could.
Ugh. Here we go. Let's take a look at this case. This is not.
Yeah, I don't know if the drawing pops up right there, or if you have to go
I
like.
downloaded a zip file.
Yeah, there's something. Well, you can order it through ProtoCase, so they're the ones building it for that company. Oh yeah, view the Backblaze page. There it is. So there's the.
Man,
there it
that's
is.
so red. So yeah, for you custom case empty, or you can
Yeah.
buy one assembled, tested without the hard drives.
That kind of looks like a milk carton looking.
It does. It does.
For
I'm gonna-
$5,000, that's kind of steep. But
Yeah. So, but you can get an empty unit for $872. It does come with the 4U custom case, port multiplier backplanes, and anti-vibration sleeves, aero rubber. Josh, tell me what those are.
I have no.
If you order in quantities of 16 or more, the fully assembled
he's
ones are
married. He doesn't know what that
$36.
is.
No.
So $872 for the empty unit. Huh. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I don't really think I
stuff.
need that much storage ever.
I would probably not use that chassis specifically,
But,
but if
yeah.
I would definitely use some of the parts as ideas.
Yeah.
You know,
So
like they figured
okay,
out-
so this
they figured out exactly what motherboard you can have enough PCI Express lanes spread out across 3 slots to properly get the full bandwidth from all 3 RAID cards, for example. Like they actually had to go and research that. So that's your answer. Like in other words, that motherboard model is the specific one that's perfect for that.
right.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really neat. Intel i3 processor. Ooh.
And if you fill it with 4 terabyte hard drives, that would be 180 terabytes sitting in one 4U chassis.
And weigh
And
700
then when
pounds.
that RAID
Way
crashes,
off.
oh. Here's
It
your
does weigh a
wiring
lot.
diagram for it.
Somewhere in that post, they do talk about how much it weighs when it's full.
Heavy, is that what they say?
With or without the mineral oil.
Yeah, after you fill it with hard drives, you just
Yeah, then you just pour in the
dump the
mineral.
oil in.
Okay, full hard drive is 143 pounds.
That's not so
not
bad.
bad.
That's not so bad. I have servers over here that are heavier than that.
I got an old
Yeah,
compact at work that's
2-inch monitors.
significantly
that were-
heavier than that. And it doesn't have anywhere near that many drives.
It's probably about as heavy as the. Now, to give some perspective, that when I was at my last command and I built them that huge
Right.
SAN and everything,
Yep.
it was a 48 bay. So that's only 3 more hard drives to put in, but it was a 9U, so it was more than twice as tall as this thing. So they're really jamming a bunch of hard drives in a very small
Yeah, they
space.
are. All right. That's pretty cool. Before we end the show, quick reminder, go to PCPer.com, look for the contest, the Corsair Dominator Platinum 16 gig memory kit that you can win absolutely for free. And you get to get the case that you can wear as a hat or do whatever it is you want with it. Thank you goes to Corsair for supplying these goodies to give away to you guys. So with that, we will end the show. We'll see you next week. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Alan Malmontano.
Like we surprised him or something that time when we were all saying our names in a row. He didn't realize he was going to say anything. See you guys.